And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Welcome back to the Liberty Podcast. It's March 15, 2024. You found us once again here in our cozy podcast studio in an undisclosed location on a beautiful Sandhills March day as we're basking in this ongoing sunlight and enjoying every moment as we are visited by climate change in the best possible way. Many of you are marking the fourth anniversary of the onset of the World Health Organization's pandemic declaration, which effectively shut down the planet and stripped us of every imaginable liberty and freedom, medical, religious, and otherwise, for what would end up being years to come. And I read a piece the other day where the author was lamenting that we won't be prepared for the next inevitable pandemic, because don't you know, now that they've seen what they can do with one, they got to ramp it up as soon as possible. And we won't be prepared for the next pandemic, said this Yale scientist moron, because not enough people share a memory of it that is anything other than it was a nuisance and an inconvenience. And that's bad, because it was so much more than that. It was an awakening to how much better life is when government is controlling our every thought and deed in the name of public health. Public health. Well, you know what's going to be very unhealthy very soon is when we begin to wake up to the reality that the millions of illegal immigrants who have invaded our southern border now for the past 3+ years under the Biden regime and all of his willing little surrogates and field lieutenants doing his bidding to bring in as many illegal immigrants as possible. We're going to find out real soon what the true consequences of that. And it's actually going to happen as quickly as today. I said today, right up the road in beautiful Greensboro, North Carolina. Now, what's happening starting today? Well, there is a very large facility in Greensboro, which is formerly the American Hebrew Academy, a massive campus, a private school that shut down a couple of years ago, went out of business essentially. And somebody within the federal government got wind of this facility and said, hey, we got to buy this thing and turn it in to a processing center for young children who are here in the United States illegally from all manner of different countries from around the globe. And so the feds swept in and bought this facility in Greensboro. Now, what do we know about it? Well, we know a couple of things. We know, for example, that it is a 31 building, 412,000 square foot compound that has an $18 million athletic center, a natatorium, that's a swimming facility for you Democrats following along, and a variety of athletic fields and a 22-acre lake. This thing is like a resort. But now the feds have taken a hold of it, lock, stock, and barrel, and they're planning to use it to provide housing, classrooms, and recreational facilities for the children who are unaccompanied or who are waiting for family members and sponsors Where these family members and sponsors are going to materialize, nobody ever seems to know. But we need to take care of them in the meantime. Now, according to the Fox station in Greensboro, as of March 15th, this facility, which is being called the Greensboro Influx Care Facility, will be operational. That's now, starting now, operational. And the mayor of Greensboro is happy to tell you that Health and Human Services and its Office of Refugee Resettlement is legally required to provide for the care and custody of all unaccompanied children referred until they are properly and appropriately safely placed with a vetted sponsor. So they're going to be using this facility in Greensboro to hold these kids for unknown periods of time without any regard for how this facility's existence is going to affect those living in the Greensboro area and its surrounding environs. No mention of that, but it has come to the attention of our elected officials in Congress in Washington, D.C., and they have penned a letter to the Honorable Xavier Becerra, who is the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, which is overseeing the rollout of this facility, which has been contractually, as I said, operated by the feds for the better part of a year. They've been bringing in all manner of teams of workers to upgrade it to get it ready to be the facility that it has become as of today. A letter that was signed by Congressman Richard Hudson, Senator Tom Tillis, Representative Virginia Fox, U.S. Senator Ted Budd, as well as our Representative Dan Bishop and others in the NC congressional delegation. They wrote on March 7th, our offices were notified that despite repeated outstanding requests for answers about plans for the facility, that we have basically been told to go away. While we have continued to push for information about this facility, we have consistently faced significant delays in responses to our inquiries. Congressman Hudson and Senator Tillis have both submitted questions for the record concerning the Greensboro facility. Congressman Hudson submitted questions following testimony before the House Energy and Commerce Committee by the Secretary, Becerra, on 26 July last year, and Senator Tillis submitted questions following a testimony by Director Robin Dunn Marcos before the Senate Judiciary Committee on November 1, 2023. Yet as of today, March 7, when this letter was written, just last week, these offices have not received a response. This delay and lack of transparency have left us with continued concerns about whether the facility is fit for operation. Since President Biden took office, there have been approximately 7.2 million encounters with illegal immigrants across our southern border. It is unacceptable that the Biden administration's failed immigration policies have resulted in a humanitarian crisis for migrants and the need for an ICF at all, an ICF being the influx care facility that they're calling the Greensboro facility. We are particularly concerned about the need for a facility 2,000 miles away from the southern border here in North Carolina. We ask you and the department to respond swiftly to our delegation's questions, as well as provide greater detail of all current developments and future plans pertaining to the Greensboro facility. So it's literally a middle finger from the Biden administration right on down through the Department of Health and Human Services and all of its field lieutenants that, you know what, you can ask all the questions you want. We don't have any answers for you. And we're going to operate this facility according to our to our standards and our procedures. And we don't really care if it's on North Carolina soil. It could be anywhere. Once we own the facility, it's ours. The facility is going to provide shelter for children ages 13 through 17 and has a capacity of up to 800 beds. 800 beds. The facility was formerly the American Hebrew Academy, a private boarding school, but when its enrollment started to wane right before the COVID-19 pandemic, it was shut down. So there we are. Now, what could possibly go wrong, ladies and gentlemen, when we start allowing an inflow of illegal immigrants? And you might say, well, these are just children. We should have compassion for them. And yeah, we're not going to kick them to the side of the road, obviously. But the federal government ought to be taking care of them in facilities that don't intrude upon our communities. They need to be dealing with them at the border. They should never get beyond the border. That's the whole point. Now, what can go wrong? I'll tell you, it's happening right now in the already crime-infested city of Chicago. Well, now it seems that Chicago is becoming a measles-infested city. Here you go. Health authorities at the local, state, and federal levels are working in conjunction to manage a recent measles outbreak in Chicago. This is reported as of March 13 by the Fox television affiliate in Chicago. 2 new cases were announced on March 13, both in children, one living at a migrant shelter, and another from elsewhere. The city's current case count now stands at 10, with all but 2 cases linked to the migrant shelter in the Chicago suburb of Pilsen. Illinois is among 17 states currently grappling with measles outbreaks. Experts say it's due to declining vaccination rates and global migration. Really? Measles is highly contagious and can linger in the air for up to 2 hours, with symptoms potentially appearing days after exposure. This is unbelievable. But the mayor of Chicago, who has been the Mr. Sanctuary City until he started realizing that everybody was leaving, like the businesses, health experts and local officials say the general public in Chicago shouldn't panic. The mayor says, quote, "The vast majority of Chicagoans are vaccinated. Still, doctors warn that additional measles cases should be expected." Wow. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. And it's just going to get worse. You know how this goes down, right? You get 10 measles cases, then you get 15. And then it's not just the migrant shelter, then it's, other communities, other neighborhoods. And, next thing you know, you've got people in line like during the scamdemic, desperate to be vaccinated for measles again. Just when we thought that this was a disease we didn't really have to worry about that much. But thanks to the open border, here we go. Now, I continue with this thread of the impact of illegal immigration on this country. It affects our way of life, our security, our health and well-being. What else does it affect? Here's another practical impact of it. Last week, you may recall that an enormous $460 billion government spending package was passed out of the U.S. House of Representatives to the Senate, which was then compelled to vote. Now, they the Republicans knew they couldn't really stop the Senate from approving this spending boondoggle, this obscene continuation of unchecked bleeding from every federal vein that we have. They couldn't stop that. But a senator from Tennessee, Bill Hagerty, made one last-ditch effort to drag some concession out of the bill from the left. And here's what he said. He put forward an amendment that would, as part of the passage of the bill, bar illegal immigrants from being counted in the national census. Now, why is that important? Because the national census is used to apportion congressional districts. So population size in any given state, every time the census is conducted once a decade, will determine how many congressional districts a state is eligible to have at any given time. So the Democrats, of course, are always looking for ways to expand the number of Democrat congressional districts it has so that it can hold a greater hold greater control of the landscape in the House of Representatives. That's their long-term goal. That's their play. The amendment would have required the Census Bureau to include a citizenship question in any future census. Anyone who isn't a U.S. citizen, including those with temporary visas and green cards, would be excluded from the ballot for congressional district and electoral college apportionments. In 2021, and here's why Hagerty needed to do this. In 2021, soon after taking office, among the many executive orders that Joe Biden issued to ensure the wide open border that we've had ever since, he signed an executive order requiring the Census Bureau to determine the population of each state without regard to respondents' lawful immigration status. In other words, don't ask, don't tell, just count. Mr. Hagerty's amendment was defeated 45 to 51. 51 Democrats voting to defeat it, 45 Republicans voting to pass it. Democrats' unanimous opposition to this common sense measure confirms, says Mr. Hagerty, that they're using illegal aliens and sanctuary cities to increase their political power. Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, a co-sponsor of the legislation, said it came about in response to a video that showed a Democratic congresswoman openly calling for more illegal immigration to her New York congressional district because she said, I quote, need more people in her district for redistricting purposes. A group of Republican senators said the excess number of illegal immigrants in California have helped the state take several more congressional seats and electoral college votes than the population of citizens otherwise justifies. These Republican senators accuse California and other states, rightfully so, of being more lenient with illegal immigrants to increase the power of their residents' votes relative to those residing in states without a population boost from illegal immigration. They're creating a perverse incentive, encouraging illegal immigration and resettlement merely to increase political power. And 51 Democrats in the United States Senate looked a common sense amendment in the eye. Anybody with a brain would say, well, of course we shouldn't count illegal residents of a state in our census. They're not technically residents. They're just taking up space. They're using public services, healthcare, education, but they're not citizens, no matter how we try to sugarcoat it. And now we see why they're doing it, to hijack and subvert the very system by which we assign districts and electoral college votes. For what? Presidential elections, my friends. The Democrats are just like Islamic jihadists. They're always playing the long game. The next census isn't for till 2030, but they're prepared for that eventuality when the time comes. I'm not going to say it's unbelievable anymore. It's all becoming completely believable. And for those of you who aren't paying attention, just understand that your country is being slowly eroded day by day, bill by bill, illegal immigrant by illegal immigrant. And yet the president of the United States, so-called, in his State of the Dementia address last week, in the aftermath of it, you know what his biggest regret was? His biggest regret was that he feared that he had insulted the illegal immigrant from Venezuela who murdered the Georgia nursing student because he called him an illegal. And in an interview the next day with a lefty, network, I believe it was probably MSNBC or CNN, Joe said, I should have called him undocumented. I should have called him undocumented. In response to complaints by his lefty lawmakers who cringed at the thought that he would call this murderous thug illegal, even though, of course, that's exactly what he was. Unbelievable. All right. Now, here's another one for you. We keep hearing about how the economy is going to avoid a recession. It's going to be a soft kind of landing, that all the economic indicators are showing that the rate of inflation continues to go down, even though in the last report it inched up again. It inched up to 3.2% year over year in the month of February. And we keep hearing, though, that the data is full of good news and sunshine and happiness. But it turns out that that's not the case, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, it does. The other day, the parent company of the bargain retail store, Family Dollar, announced that it would be closing 1,000 of its retail outlets in the foreseeable future, incrementally over time. Its fourth quarter earnings saw it losing $1.71 billion with a B. Now, these are the stores where folks who are economically challenged, what the left likes to call the workers, the working class, this is where they shop when times are tough. When every dollar counts, they go to Family Dollar to buy essentials for their households. Apparently, even the prices at Family Dollar are too high, and they're not shopping there, and Family Dollar is losing $1.7 billion in its fourth quarter report. Now, at the same time that we're hearing about that, a report came out in the Wall Street Journal this past week, today being the 15th of March, 2024, that in 2023, a record number of Americans withdrew from their 401k retirement accounts at a rate not seen in a number of years. Certainly not since the roaring age of the Trump economy between 2017 and 20. People are so desperate to fill in the gaps of their wages not keeping up with inflation and real costs that they are tapping into their retirement accounts. And remember, it's not just that they're diminishing what's left in their nest egg for the future. They're paying a penalty. You have to pay a financial penalty to dip into a 401k. So they're not just coming away with extra cash to spend. Some of it is going right into the penalty box of the 401k hockey game. And they're willing to incur those fees because they need the money so very desperately. You can't make this stuff up. And even in the fast food realm, McDonald's is saying that they're struggling I read in the Wall Street Journal. Let me dip out of here for a second because it's right here within arm's reach, and I got to read this to you. See, we do things on the fly here. We're nimble in the podcast studio. We are very nimble. Executives at McDonald's on Wednesday, March 13, also said cash-strapped customers are pulling back in 2024. Lower-income consumers increasingly have spent their savings and are turning to grocery stores instead of restaurants, McDonald's finance chief Ian Borden said at an investor conference. Some of those consumers are just choosing to eat at home more often. While the discount brands sound familiar, Family Dollar locations are more concentrated in urban areas and sell groceries, cleaning products, and other items at various price points. So it's not just retail shopping, it's what are perceived to be value-priced meals at restaurants, chains like McDonald's. Even they're seeing that their customers are staying away. The ones who don't spend as much as the spectrum of their customers, but whose spending is part of their projections, and they will obviously see their projections, I assume, being missed the next time they provide an earnings call to Wall Street, our good friends at Wall Street. Now, I got to share as we go out the door one final economic related tale that hit right close to home, right here in my very day in and day out life. A very nice lady who I know, who works as a housekeeper. She cleans people's houses. She dusts, she vacuums, she mops. She does laundry. Very sweet lady who's always seems to have a smile on her face. Here's what she told me. She said, you know what? St. Patrick's Day, which is coming up on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day is a big deal in my family. She said, we always get together and we always have the traditional meal. And she said, I'm looking at the cost of a head of cabbage and a little piece of corned beef and how expensive it is. She said, I told my family, I'm not sure we're going to be able to have this meal this year, which used to be considered a very inexpensive meal, a St. Patrick's Day traditional meal of corned beef and cabbage. She said, I told them, I'm not sure we're going to be able to have that meal this year. She said, it's going to cost me over $100 to get this done, and I'm just not so sure I can make that happen this year. So don't you think for a moment that this happy talk about a recovering economy and data points that are encouraging, don't you think that that's being felt out there in your communities among the people who you see every day, who are part of your life and the fabric of your life? Because it's not happening. I can assure you of that. And there's a story that drives it home in a very heartbreaking way. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you how much it means to me when many of you have let me know that you're watching the podcast week in and week out. It means a lot, and we hope you'll tell your friends and spread the word that the Liberty Podcast is coming at you every week. Emphasis on truth, uncovering what the left-wing media doesn't want you to know about. And we're happy to do it. And we're going to do it again next week right here. So join us again next time. See you then.